The whole street lost power in the storm. Every house went black, except one. The old empty house at the end of the block, the one that's been vacant for years, no power, no owner, had a single window lit, a warm, steady glow, and standing in it, looking out at all of us in the dark, was a silhouette in a house with no electricity, on a street where every light was dead. Welcome back. It's just you and me and the dark tonight. 3 true stories about the power going out, about that sudden total darkness that swallows a house, and the things that darkness lets us finally notice, or that finally notice us. Let's begin. It was a big storm, the kind that takes the whole grid down. Our street went dark all at once, that strange moment when every hum in the house stops, the fridge, the vents, everything, and you're left in a silence and a blackness you almost never experience anymore. My family gathered in the living room with candles and flashlights, the way you do, making the best of it. And after a while I went to the window to see how widespread it was. The whole street was black. Every house, every street light, gone. It was the darkest I'd ever seen the neighborhood. You could see stars you never normally see. And at the end of the block, one window was lit. It was the old house. Everyone on the street knew the old house. It had been empty for years, a probate thing, tied up, nobody living there, slowly going to seed. No power connected, no owner around. It just sat there, dark, at the end of the block, the way empty houses do. Except now, in the middle of a total blackout, one of its upstairs windows was glowing. Not a flashlight beam, not a candle flicker. A steady, warm, electric light in a house with no electricity, on a street where nothing else had power at all. And there was someone standing in it, a silhouette, dark against the warm glow in that upstairs window, facing out, facing the street, facing, it seemed to me, our house, just standing there perfectly still, looking out at all of us huddled in our dark homes from the one lit window on a black street. I called my husband over. He saw it too. We stood at our window and watched the figure in the lit window of the empty house, and it didn't move, and it didn't look away. And after a few minutes it became unbearable, and we closed our curtains. I did some asking around the neighborhood after that night quietly, the way you do when you don't want to sound insane. And I found that the old-timers all knew about it, in the way people know about a thing they've quietly agreed not to discuss. The house had been empty for as long as any of them could remember, longer than it had any right to be, given the neighborhood, the location, the value. Deals fell through. Buyers backed out. The one family that had actually tried to move in years ago had left within a month and would never say why. And the house had gone back to sitting dark ever since. And every one of them, when I described the lit window and the figure, gave me the same look and the same small nod, like I'd just joined a club nobody wanted to be in. One of them told me the thing that stuck with me most. She said the figure in the window isn't waiting to be let in. It's already in. It lives there. It's always lived there. That's its house. The figure in the window, she said, is watching to see which of us is going to be foolish enough, or desperate enough, or cheap enough to try to move into a house that already has an occupant. And she said that every so often over the years, someone still does. I told myself squatters maybe, a generator, a trick of a candle. But there's no generator that glows like a lamp, and no squatter stands motionless in a window for an hour watching a blacked-out street. The power came back around dawn, and in the morning light, the old house was dark again and empty, and exactly as it had always been, sagging, abandoned, no glow, no figure. I walked down there, in daylight, feeling foolish, and I looked up at that upstairs window, and the glass was filthy, grimed over with years of dust, the way the whole house was. But there, on the inside of the glass, there was a clean patch, a clean oval wiped in the grime at about head height, where someone had cleared the dust away from the inside to see out, to watch the street through it. I asked around after that, and an older neighbor who'd lived there forever went quiet when I described the lit window. And she told me it happens. Every big blackout, every time the whole street goes truly dark, that one window in the empty house lights up, and the figure stands in it and watches. She said her mother had seen it decades ago, in a blackout when she was a girl. The same window, the same light, the same figure at the glass. She said the darkness seems to wake it, that as long as the street has its lights, its glow, its electric hum, the thing in the old house stays asleep. But when the true dark comes, when the whole street goes black the way it used to be, the way it was before any of us, something in that house opens its eye and turns on its light and remembers that it's still there, and watches to see who's still out there in the dark with it. That whole street went dark together, and something in one house woke up because of it. The next family found out what a blackout wakes up inside your own walls. Footsteps in their own kitchen, moving through a dark that wasn't supposed to hide anyone at all. The power had gone out, and she, her husband, and their 2 kids were all together in the living room, candles lit, waiting it out. All 4 of them in one room in the pool of candlelight, with the rest of the house in total blackness around them. And as they sat there, they heard footsteps from the kitchen, the next room over. Slow, deliberate footsteps crossing the kitchen floor in the dark. Everyone froze, because all 4 of them were right there, in the living room, in the light. Nobody was in the kitchen. Nobody could be in the kitchen. And yet the footsteps crossed it, unhurried from one side to the other, on the hard kitchen floor, plain as anything, a few feet away in the dark. Her husband called out, "Who's there?" And the footsteps stopped. Dead silence. And then, after a moment, they started again, coming toward the living room, toward the doorway, toward the candlelight and the huddled family and the edge of the dark. Her husband grabbed a flashlight and pointed it at the kitchen doorway and clicked it on, and the beam lit up an empty doorway, an empty kitchen, nothing there. But the moment the light hit the doorway, the footsteps stopped. And here's the thing she said she'll never forget. They didn't just stop. They retreated. The instant the flashlight came on, they hurried back, quick now, no longer slow and confident, but scrambling away from the light, back across the kitchen and away into the dark depths of the house, as if the light had caught it out, as if it could only come toward them in the pure dark, and the moment it was lit, it had to flee. They spent the rest of that blackout with every flashlight they owned burning, all four of them back to back in a ring of light, keeping the dark at bay until the power returned. And it never came back toward them as long as the lights were on. But she told me that all through that long, dark night, from the black parts of the house, they could hear it, circling, pacing at the very edge of the flashlight glow, back and forth, waiting, testing, every so often, a few steps closer, and then retreating when a beam swung its way, waiting with an animal patience for a battery to die, for an eye to close, for the light to fail, so that the dark could come the rest of the way to them. When the power finally came back near dawn and the lights hummed on all through the house, they went room to room together, all four of them checking. And the house was empty, doors locked, windows shut, nothing taken, nothing disturbed. Whatever had paced the dark with them was simply gone the instant the electricity returned, as if the light itself had banished it. And that should have been a comfort, but it wasn't, because it meant the thing hadn't broken in. There was no break-in to find. It had just been there, in the dark parts of the house, the way it was presumably always there in the dark parts of the house, and the blackout hadn't let it in. The blackout had just let it move, given it the run of the place, turned the home they thought they knew into its territory for one long night. She told me that's the part that changed how she lives, because she'd always thought of the dark as an absence, just the light being gone. Now she thinks of it as a presence, as a thing that's there all the time, held back by every lamp and screen and streetlight that a blackout doesn't create. It just, for a few hours, sets it free. Some things only move while the lights are out. The last story tonight is about what one family found the moment theirs finally came back on. Their power had gone out overnight during a storm, and they'd all slept through it. Woke up in the morning to a dark, dead house, and eventually the power clicked back on, and the lights came up, and everything hummed back to life. And in the living room, revealed by the returning light, were footprints. Muddy footprints, crossing the living room floor, coming from the back of the house, across the carpet and going to the stairs, and up them. Someone had been in the house. During the blackout in the dark, while they slept, someone had come in through the back. They found the back door unlocked, a window forced, and walked, in muddy boots, across their living room and up their stairs toward the bedrooms, toward where they'd all been sleeping. The prints were clear. They went up. And here's the thing that made the blood drain from her face as she followed them in the daylight with the power restored. The prints only went up. They didn't come back down. She followed them up the stairs, her husband behind her, both of them shaking. The muddy prints crossed the upstairs hall. They passed the kids' rooms and didn't go in, thank God. They passed the bathroom, and they went to the door at the end of the hall, the linen closet, a deep closet where they kept the towels and the sheets. And the prince went up to that closet door and stopped and did not come back out. They stood in that hallway in the morning light, staring at a closed closet door with muddy footprints leading up to it and none leading away. And they understood that whoever had walked up their stairs in the dark of the blackout had gone into that closet and, as far as the unbroken mud told them, had never come out, had been in there all night while the power was out and they slept, and was quite possibly still in there now in the daylight behind that door a few feet away, having spent the whole dark night standing among their folded towels, listening to the house sleep. The police did their best to reassure her. The dumbwaiter shaft explained the vanishing, they said. Some transient had used it as a way in and out, that was all. Nothing supernatural, just a person, now gone. And she wanted to believe that. She really did. But there was one detail the reassurance couldn't cover, and it's the reason she still can't sleep through a storm. Because the muddy prince had gone up the stairs and to the closet and stopped. There were no prints coming down, none. If it had used the shaft to leave, there'd have been mud at the shaft, mud on the way there, some trace of the exit. There was nothing. The prints simply ended at the closet, mid-stride, as if whoever made them had walked in and never walked anywhere again, had stepped into that closet in the dark and been, in some sense, absorbed by the house itself. She thinks about that every blackout, about the fact that something walked up her stairs in the dark, past her children's rooms, into a closet, and did not, by any evidence she could find, ever leave, that it might still be there, in the walls, in the shaft, in the dark spaces of a house that isn't hers anymore, waiting patiently for the next family, and the next long night without power. They did not open the door. They took the kids, and they left, and they called the police from the street. And the police opened the closet, and it was empty. No one there. But the back of that closet they found had a panel, an old dumbwaiter shaft, boarded over, that someone had pried open, a way down and out, through the walls of the house. So the prince ended at the closet because that's where the trail went cold, into the walls. But she told me she thinks about that closet every time the power flickers, because for one whole night, in the dark, something had come into her home and gone up her stairs and stood in her closet a few feet from her sleeping children. And the only reason she ever knew, the only reason any of them survived to move away, was that it had, at some point, quietly chosen to leave. And she has never understood why, or whether next time it will. That's all for tonight. If this one's got you thinking about the next time the lights go out, then you know what to do. Subscribe and hit that bell, because there's a new true horror story here every single night, and you won't want to miss one. Give it a like so it finds the next person in the dark, and share it with someone who hates a blackout. I'll be right here tomorrow night when the lights go down. Sleep well, if you can.
Like, share, and subscribe for daily horror stories every single day.